Well, this is interesting. I've just had a Skype request to add somebody to the call, who is Dr. Farsalinos from Greece in Athens.
Excellent.
Now, we're going to do that straight away. So we're going to add him to the call now. This is a bit of a kudos thing, really, for RY4 Radio. Let's see how it goes. Yep.
Dr. Farsalinos.
Yeah.
How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you.
We are very honored that you can join us for this discussion.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Not a problem. This is a real honour. It's. I'd just like you to put your views forward, really, and tell us how things are going at your end, really, because I mean you're doing some great work.
Yeah. Okay. No problem.
We saw you in the EU Parliament when allegedly you weren't supposed to be there, and your arguments were absolutely fantastic. I mean, how did that go for you when you were there?
Well, I was invited by the Greek Association of Electronic Cigarette Retailers. And in fact, I was already in Belgium because I'm working as a researcher in the University Hospital Gaithersburg in Leuven, Belgium. So I was only 30 kilometers away from Brussels. So I went there to present some of my research, which has not been published yet. And in fact, I was currently preparing a manuscript concerning some of my research. The problem in the European Commission was that they gave us only 3 minutes to discuss about our views, which was absolutely impossible to present any kind of research in 3 minutes. It took it took me 1 minute just to tell them that I have no conflict of interest, that I did not receive any financial compensation from the Greek e-cigarette association that they invited me, or even a travel grant. So, if you heard, I had to fight quite a lot and in order to have some more time to discuss what I thought I had to present to them, because most of my discussion there concerned only the issue of nicotine and the amount of nicotine present in electronic cigarettes.
So superb. I mean, obviously your research is sort of groundbreaking stuff, and we've recently just seen something that you tweeted just tonight to do with the clear air thing and the effect of
Clearstream.
That's right. That's it. Yeah, the toxicity on cells in the bodies. I mean, that is really interesting stuff, and I mean the listeners would love to hear what you have to say from your own mouth as opposed to reading your tweets.
Yes, I think those kind of studies are the second most important studies that can be done in the field of not only electronic cigarettes, everything. I think that the most important stuff are the clinical studies involving humans. The second best thing we can do is study the effects of vapor, of course, and not liquid, on cultured cells. You know, all these toxicological studies have been available and were made originally to substitute studies on animals for ecological reasons. So they give us a measure of the toxicity. Of course, they cannot be they cannot show the real potential on the humans because you use only cultured cells, not the human organism as a whole, but they give us a very good measure. And in fact, what we did was to examine the effects of the vapor in comparison with the tobacco smoke, which has very well-known clinical adverse effects on health. So we have also, except from a measure by itself, we also have a comparative measure with the cigarette smoke.
Excellent. Kev, can I jump in there, mate?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Dr. Farsalinos, have you had much interest from doctors or researchers here in the U.S. regarding the research you're doing? Have you had a fair amount of interest from here in the U.S., or has it been less than you expected, or more than you expected?
Concerning the US, I can say that I received some very aggressive emails last year after the presentation of the clinical study I performed that was presented in the European Society of Cardiology Annual Congress. Most of the arguments were made because it was a study based on the acute effects of electronic cigarettes, and everyone was asking for long-term studies. But this is an argument that can easily be discarded, because you cannot have long-term studies if the product is not used for at least 15 years. So the product has not ever been on the market for 15 years. It is impossible to find a person that is using the electronic cigarette for more than 5 or 6 years, and for such studies you need several thousands of people. So it is absolutely impossible to have long-term studies. Among the emails I got from some doctors from the US, they were suggested that the e-cigarettes should be compared with a group of never smokers, which is absolutely outrageous, because they wanted in fact to compare a group of people who have been smokers for several years, so they already have the burden of smoking from all these years, and compare them with a group of never smokers. This is absolutely impossible to do, and it's not correct from a scientific point of view, because okay, we know, and I believe that the electronic cigarette is much better than tobacco cigarette, but to imply that one product will completely dissolve and disappear all the effects that the electronic cigarettes that the tobacco cigarettes had on the human organism for all these years that they were used, we would have a wonder drug in front of us. So
that's
it was that kind of interest and that kind of communication I got from the United States. I think they ignored both that study and all other studies performed, which have a beneficial conclusion concerning the e-cigarette use. And in fact, I must tell you that concerning publication, it is extremely difficult to publish studies that are in favor of electronic cigarettes. And that's my personal, not only view, but my personal experience.
Well, I believe that. Isn't it also unethical to test electronic cigarettes on non-smokers? I mean, that's really not who they're aimed at specifically.
Yeah, of course not. I never tried to do that, and I would never get ethics approval to do that, in fact.
Right. That's kind of what I was thinking. I don't think an IRB would give anybody permission to do that.
Yeah, only one study that was presented in the Respiratory Congress last year, they tried electronic cigarette in non-smokers. I don't understand the reason. No one suggests that a non-smoker should start using the electronic cigarette. Not even the industry is suggesting something like that, let alone the researchers or the scientists. But I don't know why they did that. Everyone accepts that the electronic cigarette is a product for smokers, or at least for ex-smokers, but not for never smokers. So the practical meaning of that study was something I could not understand.
I can't understand it myself.
It's just ridiculous, isn't it? Go on, Jack.
Oh, it is ridiculous. No, go ahead.
Dr. Parsons, hang on, I just have one more question. I'm sorry. Why do you think it's so difficult to get these e-cigarette studies published? Why do they not want to publish them?
I cannot be in their minds. I cannot understand why, but I'm telling you this because I'm receiving the comments by reviewers, and some of them are completely outrageous. And in fact, it looks by some of the comments that some people just don't want it to get published, so they find whatever they can imagine just to tell editors of the journal not to accept the study. I was fighting for 3 months to get this study, the Clear Stream study, published. And I have received some outrageous comments by another journal that at first I submitted this work for publication. But I can't do anything. I cannot fight. In fact, I replied to the editor telling him that these comments are outrageous and someone must read the study in order. If he cannot understand the study, then he should say that I'm not able to review the study. But I could not do anything else. The editor still declined to discuss or even to accept a revision.
That's ridiculous. I mean, what about the harm reduction journal? Would they accept any of your papers, do you think? And the only reason I ask about that is because, I mean, that's what they're all about, and that's what e-cigarettes are all about, is harm reduction.
Yeah, in fact, I have never searched for this journal. I suppose it's a very interesting... in fact, I didn't know about this journal, to tell you the truth, and I never tried to submit anything there. I'm just now looking at it, and it seems like an interesting idea.
Well, it just crossed my mind. I like science, so
all these journals are this study. I tried to publish this study in a toxicology journal because it's not a population study or something like that.
Right.
It is a specialized study, which of course has significant public health implications.
It does.
But I was thinking that the toxicology journal would be more appropriate for something like that. Anyway, it has been accepted by toxicology journal. It will be published soon. In fact, it's now due to it's now under review by the editing team. To prepare the study, the manuscript in the way they publish it in the journal. See if there are any mistakes. They will send me proof to also check if there are any mistakes, and hopefully I believe that during the first days of May it will be published online.
Excellent. I look forward to reading it.
Dr. Farsalinos, I have another question. Because I don't know if I'm sure you've answered this before, but I would like to know what the answer is. Why did you start doing research on e-cigarettes in the first place? What drew you to do research on e-cigarettes?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Everyone is asking me this. I'll tell you. During 2011, I performed a clinical study that has already been published in an echocardiography journal concerning the acute effects of cigarette smoking on myocardial function, and I used some very new echocardiographic techniques of detecting myocardial dysfunction. So it was just when I finished that study when two friends of mine sent me an email with a picture of them using an electronic cigarette. To tell you the truth, at first I told them that this is nonsense and they are of no use and they are useless and so on. But I said that because I had no idea about the electronic cigarettes. However, those friends of mine kept using it and they decreased the amount of cigarettes they were consuming every day by a significant amount. So that brought the sparkle to start at first of all searching for the electronic cigarettes to see what it is, what kind of liquids you use, how the device is working and so on. And I decided to perform a similar study to what I had already done on smokers. That's how it all got started.
Well, thank God for your friend using e-cigarettes.
Yeah.
I've got a question, and it's to do with. I mean, the studies that are being done are all well and good. Is there some sort of worthwhile study to be done on people who have been using electronic cigarettes for say 4-5 years? Is there some sort of studies that can be done with them?
Unfortunately, these studies should have started 5 years ago, meaning that what you can do is take some baseline measurements, ideally before a user starts using the electronic cigarette, and then following them up for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and see the evolution in measurements of the respiratory function, of cardiac function, of whatever. Unfortunately, we don't have that kind of studies. Why? Because if you want to study someone before he starts using the electronic cigarette, you cannot know from the beginning who will eventually continue using the electronic cigarette for a long time, who will successfully quit smoking by using the electronic cigarette. And this means that you must take a very big population in order to have a final sample of, let's say, 10, 20, 30% of all the baseline population that will successfully continue using the electronic cigarette and will quit smoking. These are difficult studies, and most importantly, who will fund these studies? It is extremely difficult to find funding for these studies. You need a lot of money because you have to test a lot of people, and you have to test a lot of people in order to have a very small sample that will be used eventually. And they cost a lot of money, and we don't have any sponsors for that.
That's very sad, because I mean there's a lot of people out there, myself included, who have been using electronic cigarettes since sort of 2008, and I mean we can stand there now and say we feel better. I mean myself, I was taking pills for hypertension at the point where I stopped smoking and started using an e-cigarette, and I don't have high blood pressure anymore. So it was something that was caused by the electronic by the cigarette, and the electronic cigarette seems to have made it go away. I mean that's probably something you've seen in your studies, I assume.
Yeah, we hear a lot of stories from people because we are in contact with a lot of e-cigarette users, and we have heard a lot of stories about the beneficial effect that everyone has had from using the electronic cigarettes and from quitting smoking. But unfortunately, you cannot use these stories in a real medical study. A real medical study involves making measurements before and after, and exhibiting in an objective manner, and by performing some measurements, that there is a benefit in either respiratory system or cardiovascular system. Unfortunately, we don't have the means and we don't have the money to do that.
That's a real shame, isn't it?
It is a shame.
Yeah, usually the industry funds the studies for whatever you are searching for. So pharmaceutical industry is funding the studies for drugs. 90% of all studies worldwide are funded by the pharmaceutical industry. So the pharmaceutical industry is a very big industry involving billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. But in the e-cigarette market, there are, most companies, as you know, are Chinese, most manufacturers. And believe me, Chinese manufacturers only send me emails advertising their products. They were never interested in funding anything. Yes, I'm receiving regularly emails about their new products and their new offers, but no one has ever approached me to maybe give us an idea on what to study, or to provide us with funding resources to perform a study.
I think that's sad, Dr. Firstlinos, because I'm going to tell you right now, there are many vendors selling these electronic cigarettes, e-liquid, around the world.
Yeah.
I really can't speak for the UK. Maybe you can, Tim. But I know here there are many vendors who are making millions and millions of dollars a year selling these things. And it is sad that they don't all come together and put some sort of funding together so studies like this can be done.
I will tell you something, and it's not an advertisement. I was approached by two organizations. One was the Greek Association of e-cigarette traders, and 4 of their members funded the study concerning the cytotoxic effect of electronic cigarettes on myocardial cells. It's not this study I'm talking about, and which will be published. It's another study. And of course, the first one who approached me was Flavor Art. And I have to say that they were the only one that they called me. They sent me someone to Greece to meet me. And then they asked me to present to them proposals, doing research that would be funded by them without having anything to do with either the protocol design, or the recruitment, or the results, or the conclusions, or even the publication. So they risked their money, in fact, because no one can guarantee the result. And I told them from the beginning that I will perform the study, I will be responsible for the study, and I will be responsible for whatever results comes out, and I will have to publish whatever results come from these studies, even if they are bad for the electronic cigarette. So they accepted that risk because it's a risk, and that's how they did it. But believe me, two companies, the e-cigarette trading association, the Greek traders, and the Flavor Art, are not enough to cover the whole aspect of electronic cigarette research that needs to be done.
I mean, I've got a question here from our chat room, and it says to ask you what studies the EU have done in regard to e-cigs, to come to the conclusions that they have with the revision of the TPD. Are you aware of any studies they've done that have brought them to that?
The EU is not a scientific or a research organization. They have done absolutely nothing. Perhaps they did a review of the studies already available and published. However, none of these studies indicate anything concerning their proposal. I mean, the 4 milligrams limit that they pose has no scientific base at all. I don't know how they came up with that number. Why didn't they choose 2? Why didn't they choose 6, 4.5, 5? It has no meaning at all. They say that they were based on the amount of nicotine present on NRTs, gums or patches or inhalers. But okay, now, but they are comparing 1 unit of NRT, which is 1 gum, for example, or 1 cartridge of Nicotrol inhaler, with 1 ml of liquid, which is not the unit of use. 1 ml of liquid is on average 1/3 to 1/4 of the daily consumption. It's not a unit of use of electronic cigarette. So they are comparing what?
Apples to oranges?
1 kilogram. Yeah. Something like that, even worse. Even worse. It's non-comparable. You cannot say that 1 ml is comparable to 1 cartridge of electronic cigarette. And I have performed a study. It is a very simple study. How much liquid do on average 45 e-cigarette users consume when you give them the device and you tell them to use it for 20 minutes? 20 minutes is the time in which a Nicotrol inhaler delivers to the smoker 4 milligrams of nicotine. So we have found that, and I'm just preparing this study now, I'm preparing the manuscript and I will submit it for publication. We have found that from 45 e-cigarette experienced e-cigarette users, all of them were using the e-cigarette daily for more than 2 months, and on average they consumed during the 20-minute period less than half the amount of nicotine delivered by the Nicotrol inhaler. So and they were using, and we asked them to use a 9 milligram per milliliter nicotine containing liquid. So according to my results, the minimum acceptable level, if you want to compare nicotine delivery of electronic cigarette with nicotine delivery from NRT, the minimum acceptable level should be more than 18 milligrams per milliliter nicotine concentration. And this is how you should make the measurements, because 1 ml cannot be consumed in 20 minutes. I mean by an average e-cigarette user.
Right.
No.
Well,
You may find 1 user in a million who might be able to consume 1 ml in 20 minutes, but we're talking about the average e-cigarette user. That's why I recruited 45 e-cigarette users to do this study.
Well, I think David Dorn might fit that, but other than that, I don't know anybody.
Maybe.
I mean, I struggle along, and I probably do 6 to 7 meals a day of real wuss style liquid. I mean, it's 6 milligram the liquid I use, but I can do 6 or so milligrams a day if I really try hard.
That's about me too. I do about 5 or 6 mils a day, but I do 12 milligram. So
okay, I think the average user uses approximately 4 point something. I mean, on average, if you take a big population. Now, 6 or 7 is not a very big amount. There are people who use even 10 milligrams, but there are at the same time people that are using 1 or 2 milliliters of liquid. But when you discuss about these matters, you cannot discuss on a personal perspective. You have to discuss what's going on with the average user. So
well, I think you're right. You're right, Dr. Faustinus, because I'm sitting at my computer all day. So and that's me vaping all day. I mean, nonstop. So I think you're right. I think the average user, especially a stick battery user, which we call this, 85% of the users here are really stick battery users. I would say they're probably going through, like you said, 3, maybe 4 mils a day.
Of course, it depends on the population you study, but for this kind of measurements, you have to use a relatively big sample of users. I have also data from more than 100 e-cigarette users who have successfully substituted smoking with electronic cigarette completely, which means that they are currently ex-smokers. And more than 85% of them started using the e-cigarette with a liquid containing more than 80 milligrams per milliliter nicotine. And this is another study I have to prepare to publish. These are personal interviews of electronic cigarette users, because this will be another evidence to the EU of what I told them, that if you want to ban the liquids with nicotine concentration higher than 4 milligrams, you are in fact making the product useless, and you are in fact banning the product as a whole.
Yes.
Right.
There is no reasoning in that kind of decision. It's better to just say that we don't want electronic cigarettes in the market, so we are banning all of them. I think it's just an excuse to produce an effective ban on the product.
It is. It feels. I feel pharmaceutical industry.
And my question, and I must tell you, I have a very interesting question. What will you do if the liquids you use or the e-cigarette is banned from the market? And I would be interested to see what they will answer, all e-cigarette users.
Most people would say black market, order stuff from China. China doesn't care.
Or go back to smoking,
Yes.
Yeah, well, China, they either go back to smoking. China, that's true. They don't care. They'll keep on shipping e-liquid. And there would be, I know here in America, there'd be a massive black market that the FDA, or I don't think any government agency, could possibly stop.
Well,
Yeah,
and
no, black
it's scary
market-
because you don't know what's
market-
in the liquid that way.
Yeah, a black
Right.
market will be the ideal situation to release products that are of questionable quality.
Right.
Exactly.
That's true.
And this is a very important issue that should be addressed. Even now, I'm in favor of regulation. But what kind of regulation? Regulation is a general word. Regulation means you have to make sure that every company is using pharmaceutical grade ingredients, meaning glycerol, propylene glycol, and nicotine. And also that they are using food approved flavorings. This is very, very simple kind of regulation and a very simple way to check
our
this.
FDA?
But it's so simple that you just need to get the papers that all companies must have from the producers. I mean, everyone is getting propylene glycol, glycerol, and nicotine from chemical factories, from the chemical industry. So every chemical factory must provide to his client on every batch of sale the chemical constitution, the chemical ingredients present in what they sell. It is by law. So every company has it. Now, what the public authorities should do is just check that they use pharmaceutical USP grade, let's say, products. Nothing more is needed. Nothing more. And of course,
I agree. I really like you. I really like you. You need to come talk to our FDA once you're done with the EU.
Yeah, when you're done over there, come on over here.
I don't think that they are so stupid not to know that. My opinion is that they are more clever.
I think they might be here.
They are more clever than we think they are.
Well,
I mean, there is talk here in the UK of the MHRA jumping the gun when it comes to EU, and the MHRA in the UK are talking possibly about a light touch MA regulation, which means that there won't need to be clinical trials, but each I'm sort of thinking here, each flavourless e-liquid at 6 milligram, 10 milligram, 18 milligram, 20 milligram, whatever, will have to have an MA for each one, and they're talking about it costing, instead of £500,000, which includes the clinical trials, they're talking about it costing £30,000 per flavourless e-juice to be licensed in the UK, and then people would have to obviously add their own flavours. Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, it doesn't mean that they have to.
I can tell you, first of all, one thing. All these flavours are sold for food use, so it is impossible to ban them. So the companies can very easily sell them as in a bottle, saying that they should be used for food, and you will take them and use it with a nicotine containing basic formula. But they will this will make it very expensive. And as you understand, there are no more than 2 or 3 companies in the world right now that can afford that kind of money. Yeah. So what will probably happen is they will get a license for the base liquid only, which has nicotine, glycerol, and propylene glycol, and they will sell all flavorings by themselves, so that you will self-mixture them and sell them as a food ingredient. So they will not need to pass that kind of regulation.
Which makes sense, but if you have to get... Are you saying you have to get a license for 4 milligrams, 6, 12, 18, 24?
That's right. I mean,
license for each one of those.
That's right. Most companies would have to have a license for their 6.
Yes, but imagine that every company is selling approximately 100 different liquids, different flavors. Right. Imagine having to pay for each one of them £30,000. So they will have to sell the flavorings in a different bottle, concentrated, and they will just get the approval for the base liquid only, which contains glycerol, propylene glycol, and nicotine only.
That's right. Most companies would have to spend about £150,000 UK money to actually get their base liquids, and then the flavours would be on the shelf.
That means a lot of your smaller artisan e-liquid vendors they're gone. That only leaves
exactly what it means.
Larger companies.
The small manufacturer will be destroyed.
Exactly. That's fantastic.
Dr. Farsalinos, I have a quick question for you. During your research, have you come across e-cigarette users that were dual users? In other words, people that said they started using the e-cigarette, they don't necessarily want to quit smoking, they just want to reduce their smoking?
I think they represent an important part of the e-cigarette users. They are. I think that maybe more than half of the e-cigarette users are dual users. Right. But they have just decreased by a significant amount the use of of tobacco cigarettes. Instead of smoking, let's say, 1 pack, they smoke 5, 6, 10 cigarettes per day. But I think they represent the majority of e-cigarette users.
I do too.
We have not performed studies specifically on them, but I cannot understand why this is a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing.
Oh, no, it's not. It's a great thing.
It's a great thing, but people are ashamed of it.
Yes, I think there's a lot of people here in the U.S., Dr. Farsalinos, that are dual users, but they're ashamed to say it because when they do, then they get from the other vapors, e-cigarette users, oh, you just need to raise your nic level, or you need to find a different juice, or you need to find a different device. And there's nothing wrong. I mean, listen, if they're smoking a pack a day and now they're vaping and smoking 2 or 3 cigarettes a day, that's fantastic. They're drastically reducing their cigarette consumption, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I think there's kind of a stigma here where they kind of they don't want to come out and say it because they get ridiculed sometimes from other vapors who have been able to totally quit smoking.
I think they should get encouragement from the other cigarette users, and not what you say, because of course the ultimate goal is to completely quit smoking. We have to understand that. I think the big problem comes from the device that you choose. We have to understand that second generation devices like the Ego batteries, or even third generation devices like mods, variable voltage devices, they are the most effective in quitting smoking, whether we like it or not. I think that the e-cigarettes, the first generation device, those that are small and resemble the tobacco cigarette, they are very, very unsuccessful in completely quitting smoking. And I think that most of the sales in the US is first generation devices like this.
Yes.
Very and that's why I think they are not very successful.
You have to be very determined to use something like I started using like a standard 510, and I was lucky to find that. But just to stop with just that, you have to be really determined. You have to have a real reason. Other people start with something like
there is no way that will automatically make you hate smoking. So we have to understand that. This is the issue also with medical products. This is also the same thing with the electronic cigarette. You have to be determined that you want to stop smoking. If you are not determined and you have not decided on that, it's impossible for the e-cigarette to make you hate and make you not like the tobacco cigarette. And you have to be determined to completely stop any use of tobacco. Because even if you are using 3 or 4 cigarettes per day, there's always a higher chance that you will go back to smoking like you did before, and you will quit the electronic cigarette. If you have stopped completely smoking and you don't search for a tobacco cigarette, and you are not in contact with it every day, then it is most likely that you will continue using the electronic cigarette without going back to smoking. But we must understand that once a smoker, you are always a potential smoker. It's the similar thing with alcoholism. If you have been an alcoholic, they say you should never drink alcohol again. It's not because it will damage your health. It's because if you once again get in contact with alcohol, you will start using it in the huge amounts you were using it before. The same thing happens with smoking. Once a smoker, you are, for all your life, you're a potential smoker.
Yeah, no, I agree. You are. I mean, I actually did give up smoking for 2 years, and then one night I picked up a cigarette, and it was welcome back, my old friend. It was as simple as that. It really is that easy to get back on it. It's a strange thing. It's a strange thing. I mean, I would never ever stop using the electronic cigarette because it's kept me away from cigarettes for 4.5 years, and as a person, I feel a lot better in myself.
I am sure that even the long-term effects will be minimal, if any, from using the electronic cigarette. Of course, we have to be cautious, and we have to monitor the market for all the years to come. But they are asking for long-term studies. There is no product in the world, whether it's a pharmaceutical product or whatever else you can imagine, that has been released to the market after long-term studies. Even for medicines, They perform a 1 or 2 year studies, clinical studies, and then they get approval to be released to the market. This has happened with everything.
That's true. That's why we have so many recalls here in the United States for drugs.
All over the world.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely crazy to say that because we don't have long-term data, we have to ban the product. First of all, if you ban the product, you will never be able to have long-term data. It's that simple.
Well, that's the circular.
Crazy.
But that's the circular reasoning of our anti-smoking organizations, I think.
Yeah, but you never need long-term studies for any product at all.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying this is their excuse.
Phase 2, Phase 3 clinical trials, and during the Phase 3 trials, they perform a clinical study lasting 1 year, maximum 2 years, never more.
Right.
And then the medication is ready for the market. Of course, with surveillance. This is what should happen with the e-cigarette too.
Aftermarket surveillance, yeah.
Yeah, because right now we have data from chemical studies about the ingredients present not only in liquid but also in vapor. And we know, in fact, we know what is not present there. We don't find nitrosamines, or we find very low levels. No one has found polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, and that's obviously because there is no combustion involved. Right. Because these chemicals are produced during the combustion process. The amount of metals and nanoparticles found in the latest study, they were far below the acceptable limits, and that was not mentioned in the study.
It never was.
Yeah, I had to make a comment, and I had to make the measurements myself. To see what kind of exposure that was compared to the exposure limits currently.
It's ridiculous the amount of bias you're facing. You're trying to do honest science, and these other people are trying to put out these biased papers. To I'll
tell you something. I was really impressed by one study in tobacco control, the famous journal, and I sent an answer to that study, and it was published online. It was the study in Singapore. They tested some 20-30 e-cigarettes that were held in the customs, because in Singapore it's forbidden to sell electronic cigarettes. Right. And there was the article was approximately 3,000 or 4,000 words, and it was only one sentence in which they mentioned that they found no nitrosamines and no polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. In one sentence. So it was 6 or 7 words out of 4,000 words.
Oh, good Lord.
And they were discussing the amount of bias was out of my mind. They were comparing electronic cigarettes with electrically heated cigarettes, which was an invention of the tobacco industry,
right?
Having some resistance, covering the tobacco and heating tobacco to 600 degrees.
Right, just hot enough so that you get something off it, but it's supposed to not really burn it. Right.
But they were burning the tobacco on 600 degrees Celsius, compared to the electronic cigarette, in which temperatures reach up to 120, 130 maximum. The kind, and that was reviewed, that was peer-reviewed, and it was published in a respectable journal.
But this is the kind of bias, you see, this is the kind of bias you're going to face. You're doing honest science. You're doing good, honest science. More people should do good, honest science instead of this spin.
I cannot reveal a lot of details, but I will tell you just one reviewer of my clinical study last year, which still has not been published by any medical journal. I'm currently waiting for 4 months just to get an answer from a medical journal about this. One reviewer from one medical journal, instead of saying something about the study, he spent 1 page of his comments saying how good NRTs and currently approved medications are for smoking cessation.
Oh, good
and
Lord.
He said nothing about the study.
Is his last name Pfizer?
Probably it was something
Is
like
the
that.
last name Glance?
I was really impressed. He didn't say anything about the study. He said, why didn't you mention that we have very good NRTs and very good medications? And I answered that I didn't say anything because the study was not about NRTs and about varenicline.
But we don't have good NRTs. We don't have good drugs. I mean, it's called Chantix here. It's called Champix there. The results of suicides, suicidal behavior, sleep disturbances, mental health issues that crop up with this drug, and it's still allowed to be sold. And they still publish papers saying how good this is. And every day you open the newspaper and read it.
Yeah. Even if you even if those side effects were not present, the quit rates from using varenicline, which is currently considered the most effective medical means of quitting smoking, is less than 20%.
Dr. Parsaluzzo, I have a quick question.
So we have 80% of smokers who are unable to quit.
I have a quick question for you. In your research, have you seen the importance of flavors to e-cigarette users? Because it seems like that seems to be like a worldwide thing. They want to take away the flavors because they're attractive to children. I mean, have you seen the importance?
I'm absolutely sure that they play a major role. Not in attracting youngsters, but in helping smokers to quit. Yes. Because one of the main improvements in the health status that you see when you quit smoking is a better taste. Almost more than 90% of users report that they feel they have a better taste after a couple of weeks of smoking cessation. So most of the users use a variety of flavors during the electronic cigarette use. They don't use just one flavor every day and every hour. So based on that, I believe that it's very important to have a variety of flavors. Now, concerning the attraction towards the youngsters, I think that the electronic cigarettes are not a very attractive product even for the smoker, because
no, you're right.
He's right.
Yes, it's not very attractive.
They're ugly.
I'll tell you why. I'm not talking about the first generation device that looks similar to the e-cigarette, because in my opinion they are completely ineffective. But even the Ego batteries, they look strange. They are bigger in size. You need to carry the charger. You need to carry, or if you have a mode, it's even worse. You carry batteries and chargers and so on. You have to carry liquids. So it's not very attractive even to smokers.
No.
So imagine the youngster, also the youngster.
And when
youngsters don't want responsibility, they just want to pull something out of a pack and light it up.
Usually youngsters, they start smoking. They hide it from the parents and from their families. So it is impossible to hide the electronic cigarette, because you have to charge it, you have to clean it, you have you need some time with that kind of device. The cigarette is much easier to use. You only need a lighter. You only need to buy a package which you throw away. The cigarette, you consume it, you smoke it, and then you throw it away, and that's all. It's much easier for a youngster to start smoking. In fact, I'm not very pleased that youngsters are not attracted to the e-cigarette, because I would prefer my son to start an e-cigarette instead of starting smoking.
Guys, I would like to bring somebody else into the conversation. I've got Dave Dawn on the side at the moment, and I'm sure he has some questions for our good doctor. Good evening, Dave.
Good evening. How is everybody?
We're all fine, mate. We're all fine.
Good. I was actually just listening to that last part. What Dr. Farsalinos probably isn't aware of is the fact that in the UK, at least, electronic shisha sticks are really rocketing up the charts, and they're all being bought by young people. That's worthy of note. They are seen as cool because of the flavours. It is worthy of note, is that?
Wow. Well, I mean...
But see, we don't have a problem here in the U.S. I mean,
we don't hear because our teenagers are...
Hang on, guys.
Well, do teenagers here think that they're stupid? I've asked my son, I said, do you see e-cigarettes in school? He says, no. I said, why? He goes, kids think they're stupid. I mean, there's not really a surge of teenagers using e-cigarettes here, but I have heard about that in the UK, that there is quite a surge of teenagers using e-cigarettes, and that's not good.
Well, yeah, but you know what? I'd rather have a kid use an e-cig than start smoking a cigarette.
The real question is,
smoking a cigar.
If there was no e-cigarette, would these teenagers start smoking or not? That's the key.
Good point. Yes, that's a good point.
That is the key.
I heard something. One guy from France. I saw his post in the French e-cigarette forum, and he said the story about his son. His son started smoking at the age of 17. So his father was an e-cigarette user, and he tried for one month to convince him to stop smoking and start the e-cigarette. So finally he convinced him, he started the e-cigarette, and after a couple of months he had stopped both the cigarette and the e-cigarette. So he used the e-cigarette in his son as a method to make him quit smoking. And finally he quit both.
You know, I know they're safer. I would much rather have a teenager using those, honestly.
Yeah, but the problem here is if I gave my teenage son an e-cigarette and he was smoking...
I know you're talking about America and things like that, and I get you, Kevin. I'm right with you. I understand. I know what the man is like there. I can't stand the man either. And he butts into everybody's business, and he could take your kid away for that. Yep. I agree. But I'm saying, from a child's health standpoint, where do you stand? Would you rather have your son smoking a couple of cartons a week or vaping?
Oh,
you
no,
know, if it's their health. I'm not talking about somebody getting all up in your business. I'm saying health-wise.
Oh, I'd much rather have him vaping, of course.
Right.
And if that was if my son was smoking and that was a reality and I could give that to him and he could do that, I would be totally satisfied with that. Unfortunately, the man's right there. It just takes him to go to school and say to one kid, oh, guess what my dad gave me? And then before I know it, I have the state in my house or taking my kid. I mean, it's terrible.
You know, that's the state minding your own business again.
Right.
The issue here, though, the issue here, Kev, is, and this is something I'm coming up against all the time, is this whole notion of normalisation of smoking, if you like. And the RPC over here, the Royal College of Physicians, RCP, my apologies, has already come out and said that using an electronic cigarette is analogous to drinking coffee, that caffeine and nicotine are two sides of the same coin, effectively. Nobody bats an eyelid at a 13-year-old or a 12-year-old or 11-year-old having a cup of coffee. What is the problem with nicotine in a clean delivery system? Why the hell are governments worldwide bringing this thing up, and why, even more importantly, are vapers falling for it? And vapers are falling for it left, right and centre. They keep on saying, oh, we've got to keep it away from the kids, keep it away from the kids. It's no worse than coffee. I don't understand this.
The problem is with the addictive potential of nicotine. One is that. But until now, there is no scientific evidence that someone may get addicted from the electronic cigarette without being previously addicted to smoking.
Well, that was the point.
The same with NRTs. I have never heard of anyone being addicted to an NRT.
Well, this was the point.
A non-smoker, I mean.
This is the point that I've seen made in some of the literature here, there and everywhere, and at EU level as well, that NRT is designed to have minimal addictive properties. And while I hate equating NRT and e-cigs together, they are both effectively clean delivery methods for nicotine.
Excuse me. I have to disagree with that, and I'll tell you why. You take a gum what will prevent you from taking 5 gums at a time?
Nothing.
Nothing. If you take 5 gums at a time, you will be nicotine poisoned. You will get poisoning from nicotine. Not just get huge amount, but if you take 5 or 6 gums at once, you will get acute poisoning. You will start having palpitations, high heart rate, high blood pressure, everything.
Yes,
and nothing will avoid you from doing this because they sell it in packages of 20 or 30 gums. You can stick 2 or 3 nicotine patches in yourself. Or you can use the inhaler instead of 1 cartridge every 20 minutes, 1 cartridge every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes. My measurements have shown that during a 5-minute use of electronic cigarette, 5 minutes is the time needed to smoke 1 cigarette, you get less than half the amount of nicotine that you get from the cigarette. And during a 20 period, ad lib, which means free use it in the way you want to use it. Okay, we didn't pose any restrictions. Use it as you would use it in your daily life. A 20-minute use of the e-cigarette compared to the nicotine gives half the amount of nicotine compared to 1 cartridge from a nicotine inhaler. So, why is the electronic cigarette giving a higher amount of nicotine? I can't understand that.
No,
perhaps if you use 50 milligram per milliliter nicotine, you might get higher amounts. But according to my measurements, even 18 milligrams per milliliter is acceptable.
18 milligram wouldn't even touch the sides with me. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. But the fact of the matter is, I was looking at the addictive qualities here, and if a NRT and e-cigs are comparable in terms of the amount of nicotine they give, and if NRT is accepted by authority as being nowhere near as addictive as tobacco smoking, then why are people seeing that there's an addictive quality to e-cigs that's any different from caffeine? Because I'm not seeing that there's any difference between the two. And I don't understand why we have vapers who are really, really scared of the nicotine that's in e-cigs and see that it's got an addictive potential for youngsters. I'm just not seeing this. I'm sorry.
In fact, there is no real evidence for that. These are just theoretical concerns until now.
Well, it's got to be a theoretical concern because the only addictiveness studies that have been done via smoking tobacco, because that's been effectively the only method for delivery.
In fact, it's unethical to perform a study in a non-smoker and giving him nicotine to see if nicotine has any addictive potential by itself or in another form. That's the big problem. So these will always remain theoretical concerns and issues, and they could never be proven in reality, because you cannot give nicotine. It is unethical to give nicotine to a non-smoker just to study if nicotine by itself has an addictive potential. It's impossible. You will never get approval to do such a study. And unfortunately, all these people are using this argument because they know that we cannot prove it wrong. I mean, I cannot get a non-smoker and tell him start using the e-cigarette for 1 or 2 months or 3 months and let's come back and see if you are addicted. It will be possible to do that.
Yes, and it's a great shame that that's the case. But the burden of proof should be on those that say that there is an addictive potential in clean delivery of nicotine. And if they've already said that there is no potential for, there's no addictive potential in NRTs, and the two are very similar, I don't see how they can prove their point. The major problem that we have, as far as I see it, is that we are being asked to prove, or e-cig users or e-cig manufacturers are being asked to prove that what we have is safe. And it seems to me that the burden of proof should be on the naysayers to prove that they are unsafe. That's where the issue lies. In other words,
this is a problem with every new product, and this is a general aspect of medicine. When you have a new product, you have to prove that it's safe. You consider it unsafe until you prove it otherwise. This is what happens in medicine. You cannot say that this product is safe because no study has shown that it's not safe. You have to prove that it's safe, and then you say it's a safe product. But I think, okay, I could understand that 3 or 4 years ago we had a very limited amount of data, and we could not say if the e-cigarette has an acceptable safety profile. But now we have enough data. Of course, we need more, but all currently available data show that it's much, much safer by a huge margin compared to a tobacco cigarette. So I also think that physicians should get really involved in explaining to the smoker that they have another option, because until now it is almost forbidden for physicians to say something, to tell a smoker that, you know, there is an e-cigarette and you might use it if you decide to use it. It has been demonized by everyone, even by major medical associations. But I think it's time to stop that, and it's time to at least inform a smoker that there is an e-cigarette. Tell the smoker what we know, what we need to know more, what we don't know, and let the smoker decide by himself. And I mean especially those that have failed to quit by other means.
Yeah, I keep on hearing the quit word being used, and I think it, unfortunately, that's being picked up on by, again, the people in authority, and they're misconstruing how it's being used, and it's beginning to annoy me now, because you and I are both using the word quit to mean stop lighting cigarettes and inhaling what's coming from them. We're not referring to quitting nicotine. Unfortunately, the people in authority keep on seeing what we write, what vapers read, what we say in various different shows like this and everywhere, and they are twisting it to say that we're punting these things for nicotine cessation, not.
Yes. I agree with you, and it's just playing with words. They accept when we say that e-cigarettes are used as a substitute for smoking, but they don't accept when we say that they are used to quit smoking. It's the same thing. We're talking about smoking, and we're not talking about nicotine addiction, but they believe that with one sentence you call it a medical product, with another sentence you don't call it a medical product. These are, in my opinion, this is not science. This is just playing with words and using the words in the liking of this group or the other group. It's absolutely stupid. They are smoking cessation devices, smoking cessation. If they want to have them as medical products, if we call them smoking cessation, then we will call them smoking substitutes. In reality, it's the same thing.
Well,
I don't believe that this should be. I don't believe it should be regulated as a medical product. I have to say that, because this will significantly reduce the potential of the product. And my belief there is that e-cigarettes should be available very easily in a very low price to everyone, instead of regulating it in a way that it will be available only in pharmacies or only by prescription, and this will lower the potential of a smoker to have access to the e-cigarette.
I can absolutely guarantee that if they made a medicinal product, the uptake will be significantly reduced. When I say significantly, I mean the majority of smokers do not want to be patients. Nobody does want to be a patient. Nobody wants to consider themselves to be ill. And in this situation, we aren't. There is no such disease as nicotine dependence. In my book.
Not only that, the price of the cigarette will explode. It will be very expensive. And it will not be available everywhere. My opinion is that the electronic cigarette should be available everywhere, and the cigarettes should be available only in limited places. But what their proposals almost bring the exact opposite result.
Well, yes, I mean, I've just been reading through Linda McCavan's report, the rapporteur for the Envy Committee, and we see that Tveka would like e-cigs considered as a tobacco product. If they want to see them banned, that's exactly what they want. It's ridiculous.
In fact, I had a discussion with the president of Tveka when we were in Brussels, because he was also present in the meeting we had. He's talking about the tobacco product only from a lawyer's perspective. His view, I'm not a lawyer, I will not comment, and my opinion is that there should be a new regulation and there should be a new kind of products called tobacco harm reduction products, and every product, including e-cigarettes, should be included in this category and have special legislation for that. This is from a scientific point of view.
Yeah,
from a lawyer's point of view, he told me that the tobacco, classifying it as a tobacco product is the only way to make sure that this product will be available in the market. That was his opinion. That's why he was so fanatic in this opinion.
Well, I'm not a lawyer either, but I beg to differ with his opinion diametrically. If it becomes a tobacco product in the EU, it is banned outright, straight away. That simple.
I'm not familiar with the law, so in fact it cannot even be a consumer product, because as a consumer product it should be available to everyone. So my opinion, but I think it will not ever be done, is to have a special legislation for that kind of products. But you see, even the European Union is ignoring all the studies done on other tobacco harm reduction products like snus. I don't know why they continue to ban the use of smokeless tobacco in Europe, besides, of course, some Scandinavian countries which have vetoed this kind of proposals. But I cannot understand. We have huge evidence from long-term epidemiological studies of 20 or 30 years that they improve the health of smokers. But still the European Union ignores these facts.
Yes, well, there's a very simple reason for that, and the World Health Organization Framework Convention on Tobacco Control outlined it at its fifth meeting in last summer, where they basically said they want to put tobacco companies out of business. They want tobacco as tobacco off the face of the earth. It's that simple, and it's purely and simply to prevent tobacco companies from continuing to make profit. That's the only reason.
They are very unsuccessful, I must say.
And long may they remain.
They are very unsuccessful. I'm sorry, but Philip Morris only has an annual revenue of almost $200 billion. So I think they are very unsuccessful in what they are planning to do.
Oh, I would agree with you, but that's their stated aim. That's what they want to do, and therefore they just won't back down. It's an ideological stance. It's a puritanical prohibitionist attitude, and it stinks. And
it's what they look like they want to do. I'm not sure if that's their real intention.
Well, it's got to be something along those lines. But as I say, I'm not a lawyer, and the one thing that does make me a little optimistic is that the Conservative group in the European Parliament have already proposed that a third way should be taken on. Exactly aligned to what you were outlining earlier, and if that goes through as amendment, it may well be voted on and brought in. I would like to think that would be the case, but because certainly that seems to me the sensible route to go, and that should actually be global. They need to pick it up in the States as well. But I don't want to hog this conversation. I was just sitting listening, and I got brought in.
Yeah, I cannot express any opinion on that because, as I told you, I'm not familiar with the laws and how they should be regulated from a political and from a lawyer standpoint. I can only speak from a scientific point of view that, in my opinion, you are underestimating the product if you classify it as a tobacco product. You cannot classify it as a consumer product because that means that it can be used by anyone. The only solution I find, but I'm not sure if it's feasible, is to make a new legislation for all tobacco harm reduction products. They have to accept that tobacco harm reduction is a strategy that works and that produces results, beneficial results for the health of the people. If they don't accept that, then I don't know what they can do.
Well, we've just got to follow the money to see where they're going to go, but Jan's got something to say to that, because she's just typed amen.
Go ahead, Jan.
That's absolutely right. Tobacco harm reduction saves lives. I know here in America, before people ever smoked cigarettes, all they ever used was oral tobacco. And I think it was the beginnings of the American Lung Association. Back in those days, way back in the early 1900s, they pretty much killed the spittoon because they had a thing. They didn't really like spitting in public. They were absolutely sure this is how people had to go into asylums, and they had to recover from all sorts of horrible diseases. But the antis back then equated oral tobacco use with other people becoming sick and ill off that. And then people started really using cigarettes. That's when cigarette use took off. If that had not happened, I don't think we would have this prohibition. I don't think you would have cancer rates as high as they are. I don't think you would have people making millions and billions of dollars off of the misery of people who would like to quit smoking. I just don't think that's possible. It would not have happened because people would have used what was available to them at the time. It's just a shame that the World Health Organization and all its sister organizations, the alphabet soup, if you will, just has this hatred for tobacco or any kind of tobacco product, because some of them, like Swedish snus, like even American smokeless tobacco products, which aren't the safest, are still hundreds of times safer than smoking. And they've lied to smokers. And that's wrong. You have the right to know the truth. You have the right to protect your health. If you use nicotine, you still have the right to do it in a clean way, but you should be told the truth about it. And that's where all these policies are failing us. I'm going to shut up now.
I believe the same thing applies even to smoking. I'm completely against any kind of bans, especially those bans in the US, which have reached to a point that everyone is getting crazy with that. If I have a bar and I want to have a smoking place, or to have the bar as a smoking bar, the non-smoker has the right not to come to my place, to my business. Everyone should have the choice. Okay, I agree with the bans in public place, for example, in the public, for example, going to a public service. But let's say to cafeterias or to bars or to restaurants, everyone has the right not to go, or to go to a smoking, or for the businessman to have his business as a smoking or a non-smoking business. That kind of frenzy with a prohibition, with banning, or with having fines for everything, they even reach to a point that they believe that through the walls the smoke can go to the next apartment, for example, in a house, which is completely outrageous. I think that they are losing control in the United States, some politicians, and they think that they can implement laws in order to control the lives of everyone. And it has reached to a point that has no logic.
Indeed. But it's not just in North America, it's worldwide.
Yeah, I think it's now coming to Europe too.
Yes, very much so. And what's going through the European Parliament at the moment is an example of that. And again, Jan's just mentioned the lawsuit in California about third-hand smoke seeping through walls. And how much did they get out of that, Jan? It's about $15,000 in damages they got. Yes, she's typing yes. She's shutting up. I take it the throat's gone off again. Sorry, Tim, I'm taking over. Over to you.
Hang on. I just unmuted my microphone there. Thank you very much, Dave. we're getting very close to the top of the hour now, where we have to leave. Kev, have you got any more questions for the good doctor?
No, I think I was able to ask all my questions. I just want to thank Dr. Farsalinos for everything he's doing, the wonderful research. I'm looking forward to seeing what else you're going to be doing research-wise, and I want to thank you on behalf of all vapors in America for what you're doing and for doing this wonderful research and standing up for us.
Thank you very much for your kind words.
It needs somebody to stand up for us, and I mean, you're doing a sterling job out there, and I mean, I hope it all continues, and I hope it all goes the right way. Jan, have you got anything else you want to say before we play a couple of tunes and get ourselves off the air?
Just, this was a great honor. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of it. It was an honor to talk to you, Mr. Farsalinos, Dr. Farsalinos, I'm sorry. And it was great to hear you speak again, Mr. Dorn. Thank you for allowing me to come on this evening. Thank you.
That's not a problem. Dr. Farsalinos, is there any last words from yourself before we play a couple of songs and disappear into the night over here in the UK?
I think that this year we will see a lot of data concerning electronic cigarette use. I have prepared 3 clinical studies concerning electronic cigarette use and comparing, this is important, electronic cigarette use in smokers too. So I have asked also smokers to, and I made a comparison on the smoker himself with smoking and electronic cigarette use on the same person, on the smoker. So one study, I have submitted it for the next annual Congress of the European Society of Cardiology in August, and I hope it will be accepted. And 2 other studies are already finished concerning participation and all the data analysis, and we are currently preparing the manuscripts for publications. We will see a lot of things this year.
I hope so. I certainly hope it goes the right way for all of us.
We will reveal only the truth, so the truth will come out, whether it's good or bad. I have to say that, to guarantee that only the truth will come out.
That's lovely. This has been RY4 Radio. It's been Friday night. I am Tim Weston, live from the UK. And on the show tonight, we earlier had Matt and Russell. And I'd like to thank Kev and Dr. Farsalinos. Thank you so much for joining the show. It's been great to have you on. I'd like to thank Jan and, of course, Mr. Dawn himself as well for being on the show tonight. It's been a bit of an eye-opener. This show will be available on Mixcloud tomorrow for those people that have missed it. I will definitely get this one up and on there. And hopefully people can come back with some more results from the clinical tests and whatever's going on. And I mean, I just hope for all of us this all goes the right way. We've got a couple of songs before we check out on you tonight, and this is the first.